Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Matt DeLockery. Today, I want to touch on a topic that I basically never talk about: politics. But it's not really politics. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Anyway, as always, if you have a question or comment, put it in the chat and I'll answer or address them when I'm finished. Um, so, as I'm looking at where our country is right now and where things might be going in the future, it occurs to me that many of the old distinctions that have divided us may not be quite so important going forward. The categories of liberal and conservative, I think, are two of those. And I know it seems like that's the only thing that matters right now, but give me a few minutes and let me see if I can explain. To begin with, I've disliked both of those labels for a while now, and I don't really identify with either one of them. Liberal makes it sound like you're just sort of all loosey goosey on everything, and whatever you want to do is fine. And I definitely think there are some right ways to go in life, and there are some wrong ones as well. How we'd legislate that is a secondary question, but not all paths are equal. Some are better than others, and some are ones you would not encourage someone to walk down. On the other hand, conservative make it sounds like you want to just take things back to how they were. And certainly our romanticized version of how the past was sounds pretty good. And if we could pick out all the good parts and leave the bad parts out, I mean, all right then. But that's not how the past actually was. There were a lot more problems than our Hollywood mental image of the past suggests. So, no, I don't want to go back to the past. I want to go forward. And that makes the term progressive sound pretty good. But that has its own problems. Progressing towards what? Where are we headed? What is the goal that we're trying to make progress towards? Because moving forward isn't always good. You have to know which way you're going. Because if you start moving forward, but you're headed in the wrong direction, you're actually getting more off track and further away from where you really want to be. And the thing is, while each of these labels have some pros and cons, and while they've categorized us into groups for a while now, which I don't actually think is a good thing, I think in the very near future, we're going to be united or separated by something much more fundamental. In the last few years, I, for one, have seen people become increasingly closed-minded on all sorts of issues, especially the big ones. They identify as either right or left and cheer for their side absolutely no matter what. That has the potential to take us to some dark places. I really don't want to go there, but the more and more we refuse to listen to people who disagree with us, the more and more quickly we're starting to head down that path. So because of that, the real distinction going forward will be who will listen to others and who won't. I think all the same left-right stuff will be there, but there will be something more than that. There will be an additional up-down dimension. The up will be people who are willing to listen to others, and the down will be people who choose to bury their heads in the sand. They'll support their side no matter what. They'll vote for their side no matter what. And they'll do whatever their side requires, no matter what their minds are already made up. And there's a great danger in following this path, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you're on the left or right. If you're cheering for freedom but refusing to listen to others and supporting your side no matter what, you're actually killing the freedom you claim to love so much. When you support your side without question, you're ignoring anything the other side has to say. When you were ignoring anything the other side has to say, you were telling them their opinion doesn't matter. And because their opinion doesn't matter, you will act without considering the consequences to them. Countries in which some part of the people act without caring what happens to the other part of the people are not freedom-loving countries. They're totalitarian. And totalitarian governments require complete subservience to the state. You must do what the government says, or else. What's worrisome is that over the last few years, that's the direction we've started heading. And it's not because there was some military coup or a government was overthrown by another country. It's because people are choosing to move in this direction voluntarily. And the reason they're choosing to move in that direction is simply because they're choosing not to think. And it's not even about having a leader who encourages these things. If we completely take the leader out of the equation, let's just do that for a minute, completely take any leader that we might have out of the question, we can absolutely create this type of environment ourselves just by refusing to think. Consider what would happen in your own town or community if everyone decides they're all going to think in one particular way and not listen to any other thought. All discussion dies because there's nothing to discuss. All choice dies because there's only one choice to make, the choice the group makes. And all freedom dies because if you choose to do anything other than what the group does, you're acting against the group. And people who only know how to follow the group don't really like anyone acting against the group. Your free choices attack them personally, and they will respond. And that's where we're headed. That's the direction we're choosing to go down with the choices we make right now. This is not a doomsday prediction or whatever. I'm just saying, if you look at what we're actually doing day in and day out, these are the choices we're making, and that's the consequences. And it doesn't even have to be about a dictatorial leader forcing these things on us, though we're creating very fertile environment for leaders like that to thrive. This is what we're creating in our own groups and social networks, and what's happening in the country is just the same thing on a larger scale. As I see it, there really is only one way we can stop ourselves from moving in this direction, and that's to start listening to one another, even if, and especially, if we disagree with them. Right now, we're saying, I absolutely think you're wrong, so stop talking. We have to say, I absolutely think you're wrong, but I want to talk with you about it. Why do you think the way you do? And then you have a conversation. Because of this, going forward, I think the most important distinction between people is not going to be whether they're on the left or the right. It's going to be whether they're up or down. Will we take the high road, consider what other people have to say, and then treat them like they have real value? Or will we take the low road, ignore what other people have to say, and do precisely what we want, regardless of what happens to them? This is the choice that's facing us, and going forward, this is the one category that will matter more than all the others. So there you go. That's my thoughts on where we're at politically right now. Questions, comments, cries of outrage? What you got? Currently, there's only one goal for politicians. Our side is right and your goal is wrong. Win at all costs? Yeah, that's really true. Of course, we also get the politicians we deserve. So they're going to be a reflection of who we are as a people. So if that's how we treat each other in and day out, then that's who's going to end up getting elected. So the solution is not immediately vote in better politicians, though that would be great. We need to start by being the sort of people who are going to actually elect better people, because we're not going to notice or care if they're doing the exact same thing that we're doing. The labels are putting us in very tiny boxes with the lid pulled down tight. They aren't allowing for the complexities that we are as humans. Any label, not just politics. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that partly it's the label thing and partly it's a one or two voter issue, because if you vote entirely on a single issue or even two, then basically all a politician has to do is say that issue. They know they've got your vote and they can say and do whatever else they want. And so actually a large percentage of the electorate, I think, would be disenfranchised if they vote just one issue, because you're never going to because you're not being treated as complex. They break you down with polls and say, okay, these people are going to vote this way, these people are going to vote this way. If I say this one thing, then I get them and I can ignore everything else and do what I want. We're going to be treated simplistically if we vote simplistically. We need to think through all of the issues and not just vote on one or two. And that way, politicians will actually have to campaign to all of us and not just the one or two small battleground communities, and everybody else gets ignored. Let's see here. We're being driven by the media. Yeah. And someone else says, well, the media plays a large role, but our sheep-like following is our own fault. Yeah, I think the media, very much like the politicians, it's a reflection of us. I don't think they're driving it. It's like anyone or anything that runs on popularity, whether it's media or famous people or politicians. They're not interested in changing the temperature of the room. They're interested in figuring out what it is and going along with it. They're thermometers, not thermostats. They wouldn't be acting the way they did if we weren't acting the way we are, because they're just trying to get votes and media is trying to get views. It's a similar thing, just in different fields, but it's the same idea. Let's see here. Question: what is some scripture we could use to support the points that I'm making? as far as Christians, how they're supposed to act on this, I think we need to not just think about finding a particular text in the Bible to prove something or not prove something. I think Christians especially need to really think about the role that truth plays in their life, because truth is not something we ever talk about. It's just doing our church thing or this thing or that thing, and we don't stop and take time to look at the world around us and see, how is it actually put together? We need to start back with the very beginning and ask the question, is there a God? And then figure out, is Christianity actually true? And if it is true, then what is it supposed to look like? We just start with the assumption that our way is right, and then at most try to make small, like 1 or 2 degree modifications this way or that way. I think we need to start back from the beginning and rethink through this whole thing that is Christianity, that is our worldview, and figure out, well, where should we be going? Because if you go for too long without checking your map, you can easily wind up in a pretty not so wonderful place. Someone says the issue is that people don't want to hear from others. They like these labels because it allows them to find others like themselves. Yeah, I get that. And people really do like to find others themselves. I mean, I like hanging out with people that are like me. I mean, absolutely. But I think part of being a responsible adult and is understanding that you do need to interact with people who aren't like you and who think differently than you do, because you can't just always have everything that you want. That's part of transitioning from childhood to adulthood, not having everything that you want all the time, because that doesn't go anywhere good. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about, life choices, whether you about your diet, your exercise, whether you're talking about your career, whether you're talking about choices you make in interacting with other people. You can't just have everything that you always want. So yeah, we like hanging out with people like us, but we should actually make a conscious choice to hang out with some other people who think differently than us as well. So yeah, we could use a little bit more adulting. And I think that's a big part of the problem. We're just screaming for the things that we want, and we scream louder if we don't get them. And because of that, we're able to be manipulated like children. We need to grow up. In terms of politics, are there new labels we can use instead of conservative liberal? If we change the labels, I don't know that we're actually going to address the problem. We'll put new labels on things, and even if we manage to do that, which I don't know that we could, but even if we manage to put new labels on stuff, pretty shortly everybody will just identify, oh, the new whatever we call conservative and the new whatever we call liberal as just the same thing that we've had before, and nothing will actually be different. I think we need to go deeper than the labels and actually change the way we act and change the way we interact with other people. Otherwise, we're just, putting a coat of paint on something that's broken. It covers the problem, sure, but if you've got mold, I mean, covering it is just gonna. I mean, it makes it look like the problem's gone away, but you're still gonna have problems down the road. So you need to actually fix the problem, and then you can make it look nice from the outside. So that's the questions for today. I hope y'all think about this for real, because things are becoming a little bit more unstable with time. Before, I mean, like, nobody really liked politicians before, but it was all pretty much business as usual. Nothing's really changing much from day to day, week to week, month to month. Things are changing a lot now, and because we've stepped off a normal path, everything's sort of up for grabs, and we can make really, really large changes very, very quickly, which can be good. Or, looking at the way things are going now, it's kind of bad, because it's not even necessarily the policies. It's the I'm not saying it's not, I'm just not commenting on them. It's the refusal to listen. It's burying our head in the sand. It's deciding my group is right no matter what. And yeah. Someone said, I think giving people grace and not jumping to conclusions over labels is where we should be headed. That's exactly right. And I think I want to end on that. Give people some grace. Don't jump to conclusions. And try not to make the labels the most important thing. So as you go out this week, try to do that. Have a good week.